Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, here with another FCS Game of the Week. And guys, it's a big one. The Colonial Athletic North Division will be on the line this Saturday as the 7th-ranked Delaware Fightin' Blue Hens take on the 10th-ranked Villanova Wildcats. And if you go back, guys, and watch our FCS spring season preview, you heard us say how excited we were to watch the Colonial Athletic Association, to watch this conference in this spring season. There were so many intriguing matchups in the North Division, teams and matchups, but the North Division for us was the most intriguing out of all of them. And it's fitting, really, that's boiling down to one game, and it's going to be a top 10 game between Delaware and Villanova. So we are here to break down everything you need to know about this game, a little bit of background on both of these programs, and then, of course, the offenses, the defenses, the key players, and who we have winning the matchup on Saturday afternoon, taking home the North title and almost ensuring themselves a spot in the FCS playoffs. So let's take a look at the background real quick. It has been a very brief season for both Delaware and Villanova. When you look at the Blue Hens, guys, Delaware, they are 4-0, 3-0 in conference, so they're undefeated. Very fitting. That's why they are worthy and deserving of the 7th-ranked team in the entire country. They've also dominated every single game they have played this year. Yes, they've only played 4 games, but their closest win this season came by 14 points over Rhode Island. So they have won every game by at least 14 points. Now, granted, their opponent's record so far this season is 7-8. Villanova is without a doubt the toughest team that Delaware will have faced this season. But to win every game by at least 2 touchdowns, I don't care who you're playing. That's impressive. You look at Villanova, they are 2-1. So they've played one less game than Delaware so far this year. Their only loss was 40-37 in overtime against Rhode Island. Again, the team that Delaware beat by 14. So again, this is just their 4th game of the year. Just their 3rd game they will be playing since March 13th. So they've had some pretty lengthy breaks in there. You can't help but wonder how rusty, how complete this Villanova team will be, especially going up against a very solid, stout, electric Delaware program. So let's take a look at the offense. When you look at the Blue Hens, we always give preference to the road team first. When you look at the Blue Hens, the thing that stands out to me more than anything is how consistent and balanced this team is. And I know many will say, we say that a lot. Oh, you're always saying they're balanced. They're always saying they're consistent. That's not true. It's not true. It is true in the case of Delaware. They have scored at least 31 points in all 4 games so far this season. Think about that. They haven't scored less than 31 at all. At least 31 points in every game this season. They've done that with that mixed attack with 186 passing yards per game and 219 rushing yards per game. We're seeing a lot of teams in the FCS, especially in the spring season, that are actually rushing for more yards on average than they are passing. These teams like to win it in the trenches, and Delaware is no different. The star so far for them, there's a triple threat here, but the main star for the Blue Hens in this spring season has been their running back, obviously, DeJuan Lee, the senior running back who has 450 yards, 5 touchdowns, and is averaging 7.8 yards per carry. Think about that. He's averaging 7.8 yards per carry. He's played 4 games, has 450 yards, and has 5 touchdowns on the year. In addition to that, he has so much help surrounding him. Wide receiver Thyrick Pitts has 264 yards and 3 touchdowns on the year, has developed great chemistry with quarterback Nolan Henderson, who's completing 67.4% of his passes for over 700 yards and 7 touchdowns this year. The team is stacked from top to bottom. They can obviously air it out with great chemistry between their quarterback and wide receivers. They can obviously run it like they like to, 219 rushing yards per game, with Lee on the ground. It's a triple threat offense for the Blue Hens, and that's a major reason that they're almost clinching themselves a spot in the playoffs. When you look at Villanova, many would say they've only played 3 games, so there's not that much to go on, but we do have a little bit. Put as much stock into these stats as you will for the short season that both teams have played. But the Wildcats are averaging 32.3 points per game. They're averaging more on the ground as well, 217.3 rushing yards per game compared to 205.7 passing yards per game. So again, very, very balanced, just like Delaware. They prefer to run it a little bit more, just like Delaware. These teams really offensively are fairly similar. You really can't dispute that. If anything, you're just going to look at Villanova and say, well, their passing numbers are a little bit greater than Delaware, so maybe they're a little bit better offensively. And I wouldn't even say that's true. When you look at who the playmaker is for the Wildcats, though, it shouldn't be a surprise that it's also their star running back in Justin Covington. Why wouldn't it be their running back when they're averaging well over 200 rushing yards per game? Covington has rushed for 232 yards, 6 touchdowns on the year, and the number that stands out to me more than anything is that, yes, he has 6 rushing touchdowns. Villanova has scored 11 offensive touchdowns in this spring season. So he has scored 6 of Villanova's 11 touchdowns so far this year, including 4 rushing touchdowns 2 weeks ago when they took down Maine. And let's keep in mind that he scored 4 touchdowns against Maine on 9 carries. Think about that for a second. 4 touchdowns, 9 carries. He got 2/3 of his season total of touchdowns in one game against Maine. That's impressive. He is the workhorse of this team. He is the make or break player for this Villanova team. They need him to have a big game if they want to take down Delaware. Another reason they need him to have a big game, guys, is because Delaware's defense is pretty dang good. When you look at the defenses for both these teams, Delaware owns the clear-cut advantage. And again, put as much stock in that as you will. Remember, the Blue Hens' opponents' combined record right now is 7-8. Villanova is the toughest team they face, and it happens to be on the road. Seems to be the case a lot this year. But when you look at the Blue Hens, their numbers, I don't care who they're playing against, are outrageous. They're allowing just 9.5 points per game. 9.5 points per game. Yes, they're allowing 109.5 passing yards per game, which is not bad. The key number that stands out to me more than anything is the fact they're allowing 89.5 rushing yards per game. So they've allowed well under 100 rushing yards per game. Remember, Villanova is averaging over 217 rushing yards per game. There's a big difference there. What's going to give on Saturday? Does Delaware's defense and that front seven remain very stout, very strong, or does Villanova exploit that because Delaware has yet to face an offense and a running game as strong as that the Wildcats provide? That's the million-dollar question. When you continue to look at Delaware's defense, though, again, it's amazing to me that they have held half, so 2 of the 4 teams they've played, half of their opponents so far this season to both under 100 passing yards and 100 rushing yards. So they have played 2 games this season where their opponents have not eclipsed 200 offensive yards. That's impressive. Again, I don't care who you're playing. Once, maybe it's a fluke. Twice, absolutely not. Delaware defense is stout. They're stingy. And on top of that, everything we've mentioned, they have forced 13 turnovers on the year. 13 turnovers through 4 games. They have forced at least 2 turnovers in every game they've played this season. Would not expect anything to change on Saturday as they play the Wildcats. When you look at Villanova's defense, do they have what it takes to shut down the balanced and consistent attack, like we mentioned, of the Blue Hens? They do, but the numbers are not nearly as good as Delaware's. And there's one key number that stands out that concerns me, and it's the fact they're allowing 166 rushing yards per game. Villanova is allowing 222 passing yards per game. They're allowing a little over 23 points per game on average. Not bad numbers at all. But they're allowing 166 rushing yards per game. They allowed 237 rushing yards to Rhode Island, a game they lost in overtime, 40-37. They allowed 161 rushing yards to Maine 2 weeks ago. And yes, they blew out Maine. They won dominant, I think it's 44-17. They still allowed 161 rushing yards. Let me tell you what, if they allow 161 rushing yards, 175 rushing yards to Delaware, Villanova does not win this game. I can promise you that. So the million-dollar question is, again, we've seen Delaware's defense. The rushing numbers are very stout. Villanova's not so much. Does Villanova's defense step up, rise to the occasion, force Delaware to win the game through the air? Something that they can do, but they don't want to do. Will Delaware's defense step up and force Villanova to win the game through the air, or just make them non-existent at all? That's the million-dollar question. And when I look at this, guys, the major question really is, can Villanova stop DeJuan Lee? Can they stop Delaware and the Blue Hens rushing attack? And my thought is no. My prediction is no. We have the 7th-ranked Delaware Blue Hens, fighting Blue Hens, I should say, winning this game on Saturday afternoon and winning the Colonial Athletic North Division. Delaware has just been too dominant all year long, guys. And to me, despite the maybe weak strength of schedule, there is no reason to believe that is going to change on Saturday. The fact they have scored 31 points in every game they have played so far this year. They've won every game so far this year by at least 14 points. If you think that's a fluke, look at the common opponents as well. Villanova beat Stony Brook 16-13 in their season opener. Delaware beat Stony Brook 31-3. Delaware beat Rhode Island by 14 points, 35-21. Villanova lost to Rhode Island 40-37 in overtime. So the two common opponents these two teams have been completely different results, both favoring the Blue Hens here. Delaware is out to make a statement. Last week, the 7th-ranked team in the country was Kennesaw State. They were kind of in a similar situation to the Blue Hens. We picked them. They failed. They've embarrassed us. I do not think Delaware does the same on Saturday. A division crown is on the line. They've been playing fantastic football all year long. Don't expect that to change on Saturday. They will pull away in the second half. They will get this win. And watch out for the Blue Hens, who I think could very well make a quarterfinal, possibly semifinal run in the FCS playoffs that will begin here in just a few weeks. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in that description below. We've got the brand new Gridiron Expert podcast out, new episodes out every Thursday. So if you're not following that, if you're not listening to that, go give that a look. The links for all of that down in the description below, as well as exclusive access to everything on our official website and social media pages over at the Gridiron Expert. Give it a look. It's college football content 24/7, 365. What's not to love? So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching again, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.